Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein, and thanks for joining me again this week. Uh, this is the 63rd installment of my weekly virtual office hour address. A year ago, I converted my office hour uh, coffee shop time into a live stream address and haven't missed a week since. People continue to say that they appreciate these weekly updates from their mayor. It really is really great because to give you it allows me a chance to give you some updates of what's happening in the city, provide some general words of encouragement, and just bring people together kind of on a weekly basis. We've now reached 438 days since the March 16th, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in an attempt to slow the spread of the virus. A lot has happened over the last year, and something newsworthy seems to happen almost every day. I just want to thank you for allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale during this time. I hope everyone's doing well, staying healthy. Please be safe, and of course, get your vaccination when you can. As I mentioned last month, I'll be changing my background art every week with art provided by Sunnyvale artists. So today's piece is called Serenity, and it's by Gita Taneja. And it's in hearing from the artist, it combines music and meditation, which deepens the positive effects on us. So thank you, Gita, for providing this week's art. And if you want to purchase that art, you can just reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with the artist. And as far as let's go ahead and get started on what's been happening at a federal, a state, a county, and a city level over the last 2 weeks. 2 weekends ago was Hands on the Arts, and it went virtual again this year, just like last year. And so those people that purchased tickets were able to buy the pre-packaged art supplies that go along with the virtual online event. But there was also a drive-through performance during the pickup, and it had a magician, a bubble maker, a muralist, hula dancers. It was great seeing those smiling faces and clapping hands of children and parents as they were in their cars, seeing the events. And it was nice to hear from the staff and the entertainers who loved it too, who hadn't, from city staff who hadn't been at seeing each other except through computer screens for the last year, and the entertainers who some of which had moved online, but it was good to actually be having them perform in front of people. So they were very happy as far as that was concerned. And then last Monday, California state officials announced that they will be continue requiring people who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 to wear masks in public, both indoors and crowded outdoors, until June 15th at least. And this is slightly different than the CDC guidance that happened the week before. State officials think that keeping the focus on getting people vaccinated before masks come off are the best thing. And so yeah, on June 15th, California will start following the CDC guidelines, but this week's leading up to June 15th, if we get people vaccinated, the safer we will all be. So that's the main focus. California has one of the lowest rates of positive COVID cases in the nation, and and we're looking at increasing the number of people vaccinated, and we'll talk about the vaccination numbers just a little bit later. Last Tuesday, the state announced that Santa Clara County and Santa Cruz counties would be moving to the yellow tier. And so then on last Wednesday, the county moved to the yellow tier. That means that museums are allowed to be open with no restrictions. Bars not serving food can now open 25% indoors. And it has, some other minor changes. It was kind of some numbers changes of those that are allowed indoors at different events. and shopping. And I think in general we're starting to see things start to open up. Wear your mask where you think, where you need to, especially indoors. But that's showing that our vaccination rate, especially in our county, is doing very well, and it's starting to really show up in our numbers. Last Wednesday, I spoke at Sustainapalooza. It's a sustainable Silicon Valley event, and it was the first annual event. And so it was like a 2-day event, but I spoke on food, and of course, talking about the mayor's restaurant project. One of our city staff talked about Food Cycle, our Food Cycle program, which has been doing fantastic. It was implemented just over 3.5 years ago. But the big thing is, it's like it lowered our garbage rates several years ago because of less food going into the landfill, which is good for the environment. It doesn't create methane. And then looking forward at what we're going to be doing over the next year, moving that into multi-family residences, so moving it into our condos and apartments, and then doing more food diversion at the front of the line, making sure that restaurants and cafeterias at office buildings can give that food, that edible food, to families in need, to other food programs around the county. So that's what our food cycle program is moving forward to, but it's all positive from a Sunnyvale standpoint. And then last Thursday was our all-day budget workshop. So this is one of 3 big meetings that council has, all-day meetings that we have every year. In January, we have our strategic session. In February, we have our study issue and budget issue workshop. And then finally, our budget workshop, which is going through the full budget for the city, which is about $500 million. So the documents are about 1,100 pages, and this year is so we switched between operational year and projects year. So this year was focused on projects, but it looks at the entire budget operationally. Revenue is down, of course, and we've had reduced sales tax. Transient occupancy tax is way down. That's our hotel tax is way down, of course. A lot less business travel and personal travel. And from that standpoint, the budget also put forth the utility rates that have been proposed. And as a reminder, these are pass-through costs from an operational maintenance standpoint. So this year's utility rate increases, water will be going up 1.5%, and that's compared to a 9.6% increase for Silicon Valley water. Last year we had 0%, and then wastewater will be going up 4%, and solid waste will be also is proposed to go up 4%. People should have received notices. They were sent out last week, so you should be receiving them, and we'll be approving those final utility rates in June. But the typical single-family utility bill will increase about $4.76 per month. And last year, from a budget standpoint, we took drastic budget cuts, and we froze a lot of positions, we reduced service levels, but our revenues are still down. And luckily, we're getting the American Rescue Plan Act revenue, and so that's about $29.5 million, which will help this year and next year's budget. So ultimately, we're able to unfreeze some positions and resume some service levels like outdoor activities. Council still did more cutting. We cut tree trimming for another year. We did activate a few study issues, but we actually, even some of the study issues that we approved back in February that we wanted to go forward with, from a funding standpoint, it was just most expedient to hold off on those study issues for at least a while longer until we see our revenues increase a bit. Last weekend was Bike to Wherever Day, so I got out on my bike and visited several of the Energizer stations around Sunnyvale, and it was good to see people in person and people out on their bikes. They had an Energizer station at on Murphy Avenue, and I think that was a very positive thing. And in talking to the organizers, they'll be doing that, probably for several years or every year going forward. We'll see how that goes, but it was good to visit, several of the Energizer stations and talk to people face to face, which we haven't had a lot of those events. And so it was good from that standpoint to just be out in the community and out on my bike and enjoying a sunny day. So hopefully people have enjoyed bike to wherever month, as far as getting out on their bikes and seeing the city, seeing the county, or beyond. So hopefully people have enjoyed that. And then as far as this week is concerned, on Tuesday, council had a long meeting. It started with a closed session. It was our mid-year review of our city manager, Kent Steffens, and he's been doing, a fantastic job, especially with all the projects that we've had and in dealing with COVID. He was chair of the City Managers Association of Santa Clara County last year, which is actually very useful when we were dealing with all the different COVID issues. But with all the projects, his civil engineering degree has really been made a big difference, and he's been doing a great job. There's been a lot of turnover in city managers around the county. San Jose city manager and Cupertino city manager just decided to quit or retire earlier this week. So happy to have some stability here in Sunnyvale. And then as far as the general meeting, we had a long portion of our meeting spent on the Moffett Park specific plan. And we've talked about the ongoing outreach that we've had as far as Moffett Park over the last year. And, multiple virtual sessions, hearing feedback from residents. So this was kind of the kickoff of what the limits are going to be on the draft EIR, the Environmental Impact Report. And so from a city standpoint, staff was recommending, 10 million square foot of office space, and R&D industrial to be examined, 18.5 thousand housing units, and 500,000 square foot of commercial and retail space. And so this is our EIR analysis. After hearing input, council finally decided to raise the number of units from 18,500 to 20,000 units. And then we also allowed looking at housing west of Matilda. So that was one of the questions. Staff was saying to basically stop at Matilda, and I do think that there are some areas of opportunities east of Matilda. So that was one of the things that the council directed. But it was a long portion of our meeting, but I think that's important. And from an EIR standpoint, this is just looking at the environmental impact report of adding those numbers as far as traffic, as far as infrastructure, looking at open space and the need for schools. All that will be, part of this study. But what's important is, this is setting basically looking at what the maximums are, and then from a specific plan standpoint, we will set what those maximums are later. So this is just looking at how things could be mitigated if those were the maximums for Moffett Park. But in looking at, what's important is the housing mixed with retail, creating walkable communities, and then basically a certain amount of office space. So I do think it is an opportunity in the long-term vision for Sunnyvale, but it's just one step in kind of what that new definition of Moffett Park will look like. And then we also appointed, all of our board and commission member open positions. So it was over 40 votes. It was difficult because each vote is a voice vote. So we had to go through every candidate and basically say yes or abstain for every candidate, and then come back and deal with ties and also just deal with people who had applied to more than one commission. So yeah, it was a good portion of the evening, but I think we went through the most votes we ever had very quickly. So I commend council for being well prepared. But it was a meeting that ended after midnight. And so we postponed accepting, one of the things that we were going to be covering was accepting the findings for the post-construction report and for the Maud Avenue bike lanes, so converting those parking spots into bike lanes. So we still need to do that from a Sunnyvale standpoint, but that'll be our next meeting. And then on Wednesday morning this week, so after a long night, I woke up to hearing about the tragedy here in the South Bay as a gunman killed 9 people at the VTA rail yard in San Jose, and it was scary as I heard from people, and I reached out to people to make sure that they were safe. Last night I attended an emotional memorial service at San Jose City Hall, and there were over 2,000 people gathered. There were families, there were elected people, there were clergy, and it was good to hear from our electeds, but it was really difficult to especially hear the stories and families reminiscing about the people that they lost, and to see a gathering of people there just in support to begin this healing process. It's never easy. We've had the tragedy in Gilroy just about 2 years ago. And I continue to hear stories from people who were here in Sunnyvale in 1988 when the shooting happened at ESL, and 7 people were killed and 4 wounded. It's just a terrible tragedy to hear those stories, and from that standpoint, how it affects people, how it affects families, and how it continues to scare people on their day-to-day life. So if you're out, if you see people on the VTA, on the bus, on light rail, wave to the drivers, say hello. It has not been an easy week for them. Light rail services has been suspended because the light rail incident. It's at the maintenance yard. But if you see buses, definitely wave to the drivers, say hi. It hasn't been an easy week for the VTA family. Our Vice Mayor Glenn Hendricks is also chair of the VTA this year, and he's been put on the front line of speaking to the press on what's happened here, and it's never an easy thing to talk about when such a tragedy happens. So I commend him, and my heart goes out to him for having to be front and center when all this is happening. So but this is the beginning of the healing, and I've been talking to several county people on doing yet another gun buyback program. Our last gun buyback program happened February 29th, 2020, just before the shelter in place started, and I think it was very successful. I thank everyone who helped out there, and I think we'll be having another gun buyback just to try to get rid of any guns that people don't want. And this is what's critical, and it helps people realize that there's, if they've had guns in their homes that they don't want and it's hard to get rid of, this is a way to make sure that they're destroyed safely. And I'm hoping that we'll have one of those events upcoming in the next month or so. And then yesterday, on Thursday, Governor Newsom announced his Vax for the Win incentive program. So this is really designed to motivate Californians to get their vaccinations leading up to the state's reopening on June 15th. The governor was saying that starting the beginning of this week, Sunday, Monday, we've seen a real decline in vaccinations. So The incentives are really an aim to give a nudge to those people that to get vaccinated, and as well as especially in kind of the hard to reach communities. And it's also a way to thank everyone who has already been vaccinated. So the governor announced several things. One of which is a um, basically a lottery system. So there'll be several lotteries that'll go on over leading up to June 15th. So there'll be 10 winners of $1.5 million, and 30 people will win $50,000. So the $50,000 drawings will happen on June 4th and June 11th. And then on June 15th will be the 10 drawings for $1.5 million. And so this is kind of leading up to trying to get as many people vaccinated with one shot or the second shot before June 15th. So first is the $50,000 lottery. So those 30 people who win that basically drawn a week from today and 2 weeks from today. And then, of course, uh, as an additional incentive, anyone who will be getting the shot, their vaccination shot over the next 2 weeks, up to 2 million people will get $50 when they get vaccinated. So those people that have held off, now is your time. You'll get at least $50, if not a chance to win $50,000 or $1.5 million. So this has been done in other states, around the nation, either the additional money or the additional the lottery, the chance at from a lottery standpoint of winning one of the big prizes of 50,000 or 1.5 million. But this is basically this last effort to try to get as many people vaccinated before we go to June 15th and things open up from a state standpoint. And the governor hasn't fully announced what will remain after we go back to whatever normal is on June 15th, but that will be rolled out. That definition will be rolled out in the next week or so. Let's go ahead and get to the weekly numbers on COVID testing and hospitalization vaccinations. Nationally, cases and hospitalizations are still very low. For new COVID cases, we now have about 33 million cases, another 200,000 cases in the last week. We've surpassed 165 million vaccinations. That's about 60% of the people 12 and over with at least one dose. And 40% of our population is fully vaxxed. Death toll, we continue to have, people die because of COVID. We're now at 489,000 deaths. That's about another 4,000 just in the last week. From a California standpoint, we still have just about 3.7 million positive cases. We're averaging between 1,200 and 1,400 cases every day. So it's one of the lowest in the nation from a case rate standpoint. And then we've had about 62,000 fatalities. On a positive note, we've had 37 million vaccinations, about 2 million in the last week. And then from a state standpoint, we're still at 13, ranking 13 as far as states are concerned, with residents with at least one dose. And then we're at number 21. So with residents with one dose, or we're still at number 21. We were at 23 last week, so we've moved up a little bit with residents that are fully vaccinated, which is about 42% of our residents are fully vaccinated. So things are looking better, and people are getting their vaccination shots, but we still have a ways to go. From a county standpoint, our cumulative cases are just over 119,000 positive COVID cases. We now have 2,135 deaths. And then, from vaccinations, We have over 1.1 over 1 million people 12 years and up that have been vaccinated. Um, uh, sorry, over a million people fully vaccinated, which is 62% of our population, and we have 1.3 million people with at least one dose. So that's that's about 75% of the county that have at least received one dose of the vaccine. So it's very positive from that standpoint. I continue to do a lot of advocating on our city's behalf, at the county level. We continue to have discussions with county health and our supervisors as far as testing. The mobile county health pop-up van is here in Murphy Park on the second and fourth Monday, and they were here last Monday from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. And so if you want to get tested, you can just go to sccfreetest.org, set up an appointment, or just do one of the many drop-in locations around the county to get tested. And then as far as vaccinations are concerned, we have El Camino Health vaccination site at 1300 Maud Avenue, right near Mary. And that's a partnership between El Camino Health and LinkedIn, and they can give up to 3,000 doses a day. And as far as the county has also been doing drop-in vaccination clinics, no appointment required. So we had a pop-up clinic on Wednesday at Fremont High School, and they'll be back again in June. And then Plaza del Rey will actually have a vaccination site next Thursday afternoon. And then starting in June, Mayview Community Health Center, that's the health center at Columbia Neighborhood Center at 785 Morse Avenue, will begin having evening vaccinations from 5 to 7 p.m. For in the month of June. So there's lots of opportunity to get your vaccination. All you need to do is go to sccfreevax.org, and you'll find out all those locations where you can get vaccinated. Let me go and do some upcoming announcements. So June 1st is the last day that we're taking applications for Sunnyvale's redistricting commission. So you can help redraw, the district boundaries for our council districts based upon the 2020 census. And that committee will gather community input and then basically recommend 3 to 5 maps with new district boundaries. And so applicants must be Sunnyvale residents, and they must be 18 years of age by November 8th, 2022. So if you want to learn more, if you want to get your application, go to sunnyvale.ca.gov/redistricting for more info. And then June 1st, of course, is Pride Month. It's the beginning of Pride Month. And so there will be a small flag raising ceremony that morning at the City Hall. But the big event will be on Murphy Avenue Thursday evening. It's a mixture of, there'll be a short ceremony, but it'll be followed by outdoor dining and background music that whole evening. And that event will be, that event is sponsored by the City of Sunnyvale, Downtown Association, the Chamber of Commerce, the Santa Clara County of LGBTQ Affairs, Fabulous Sunnyvale, and of course Silicon Valley Pride. So it's great to have a small event to kind of kick off Pride Month here in Sunnyvale. And then beginning June 1st is also the beginning of our summer reading program here in Sunnyvale. So yeah, if you go to the library website, you can see all the presentation and events that will be happening throughout the summer, and summer is just around the corner. But it's our annual summer reading program where you can win prizes and be entered to win a larger prize at the end of the summer. So definitely you can drop by the library or take a look at the website. And don't forget the library is open Monday through Saturday from 1 to 6 p.m. right now. And we are looking at opening up for more hours, but for now, you can go visit the library in person. I'm hearing from a lot of residents who are really happy to be back inside the library, picking up books, browsing the shelves. It's good to see people, enjoying what we can provide from a city standpoint. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. First up, Molly asked, any update on the new pool at Washington Park? The pool is moving along very well as far as construction is concerned. It should be opening at the beginning of July. I met with the artist. I had coffee with the artist that's putting several of the artworks at Washington Park that go along with that new building. I met with him several weeks ago, and it's really an amazing feat on what he's designed there. The Art Commission and Council, chose one of multiple designs for the Washington Park last year, and it's good to see how that's finally coming out. And so ultimately that should be opening to the public at the beginning of July. Looking forward to that, making sure that that's staffed and just having another pool within the city that residents can go to. Angela asked, what can we do to keep Murphy Avenue closed to car traffic indefinitely? Will there be future votes or other ways to get involved and voice my opinion? Who gets to weigh in on the decision? So I've been having multiple discussions with the city manager and the city attorney for a while now about how we close Murphy Avenue to pedestrian only traffic. And part of this was making sure that the businesses are on board. Definitely the Downtown Association really has heard from residents and heard from businesses. Continue to tell your businesses that that's what you want. There are some logistical issues that the city attorney is looking at as far as closing down Murphy Avenue. There's also questions about fire code and other things that have to be investigated. So definitely send letters to the city manager, council. Always are useful. We are adequately looking at that right now and what it takes to implement that. Definitely it's been talked about for years. And finally, we've been forced to use it and do it because of COVID. And all I hear is positive things about it. Definitely there's logistics about where music will go and other things, but I think in general it's created a great atmosphere. Being for Bike to Wherever Day last weekend, I was downtown, and it was just great to see everyone enjoying Murphy Avenue, the farmers market. And I think it's really created a great atmosphere for residents, for people, and I think it's become kind of a gem from a city standpoint that we saved that historic district, and now it's even better when it's only a walking zone. So hopefully we'll get that, and I'll bring up if there's a call to action. Definitely I'll be telling people here and putting out on the social media that this is what needs to get done, but we are looking at that from a city standpoint. Jeff asked, what's happening with the Macy's demolition? So yeah, fences went up several weeks ago. They've been doing the demolition from the inside of Macy's, so they've been tearing out whatever wiring and kind of metal can be ultimately saved and hopefully recycled in some way. But starting next week, after they finish that internal demolition, they'll start some of the actual demolition of the outside. And so one of the first things that you'll see disappear is the bridge that goes between the Macy's building and the parking structure. So that will be the first element that will be torn down next week. So ultimately Macy's should be probably within a month that building will be torn down. Let's see, any other questions? One of the questions is what sort of programs are in place or resources available for residents and others to protect against cyber attacks, ransomware, for instance? Does the Department of Public Safety offer everything? Offer anything? And that comes from Christoph. Actually, we do there. So we have held classes on kind of cyber security, cyber awareness. So we have held those in the past. From a city standpoint, that was one of the big things at our budget meeting. That making sure that we are safe from ransomware. You hear things around the country. It all takes is one person to have a lapse of security in an organization, and things can go very bad. Let me find out to see if any of those basically sessions that we've held, and it's mainly from it's been held through the library, through public safety, dealing with people and dealing with often students and teens on making sure that they're safe online, what they can do with cyberbullying, all those sorts of things. So I think, our libraries held something like that in the past, and I'll bring it up again with them in the future. Let's see. Anything else as far as questions are concerned? Whitney asked, the pedestrian bridge near the Fair Oaks Bridge has a sign that says it's permanently closed, but it appears that there is no other route for pedestrians. Is another option available? Caltrain asked us to close that PED bridge a little bit earlier than what we were expecting. I was under the impression that they were going to keep that PED bridge open indefinitely until all the construction on Fair Oaks Bridge was complete at the end of this year. But what the construction company has done is actually open a separated PED area along the Fair Oaks Bridge, and then there's also bike lanes along that same portion of Fair Oaks Bridge. So there's an issue with signage, and city staff is working to improve signage at the old pedestrian bridge, so that people know that, yeah, you can just walk to the Fair Oaks Bridge now and walk over the Caltrain tracks. And a lot of this had to do, the early closure had to do with electrification. Caltrain is working on electrifying that whole area, and so they're slowly working down the peninsula, and that area and tearing down that bridge made it easier for them to do their work. So that's why the bridge has been closed, and soon it will also be demolished. I think that's it for most of the questions that I have this week. Definitely. Jason asked, are you going to restart your in-person office hours? And I've been meeting with people over the last few weeks, starting to meet people for coffee, face to face. I will be at Bean Scene from 10:30 to noon today. So if you want to drop by, have a question, I'll be there. If you want to say hi, and this is, it's always been good. It's been very good to have these events, these virtual live stream events. But from my standpoint, it is really nice to see people face to face, to see, their reactions, and just to have that more of that social interaction. So if you get a chance, drop by, say hello. We'll be moving, those old office hours to much later as far as that's concerned. Wendy and Ann asked, what is happening with the old Osh sites? I don't like Home Depot and Lowe's. So just last week, an opening soon was announced for at least one of the Osh sites, the one at Hollenbeck, on Hollenbeck near Homestead, that they would actually be reopening. And it's no longer Orchard Supply Hardware, it's Outdoor Supply Hardware. So they're focusing more on outdoor and not just home repair. That being said, I feel, very lucky that Sunnyvale is going to be having one of those locations. So haven't heard on what the timeline is from from that standpoint of when they will be reopening. But working with city staff, they haven't put in the final permits as far as that's concerned, as far as reopening that location. But I look forward to having yet another location here in Sunnyvale that will be opening. And finally, Donna asked, will there be music on Murphy Avenue this summer? And that started earlier in May, that on at least Wednesday and Thursday nights, they will be having music, kind of background music, through the end of July. And then starting in August, we will again have Wednesday night music and Saturday night jazz. So that'll start in August, where everybody's looking forward to having that event again. And so getting back to some normalcy, finally, from a standpoint of kind of standard summer events. Will the art and wine festival happen? And it'll be a little bit less this year, but it'll be happening in October 2nd and 3rd. The chamber is planning that event and looking to see how kind of a reduced event will happen. I don't think it will be the same from just how big it'll be, but we will definitely have a art and wine festival coming up in October. So looking forward to things opening up, seeing people in person again, having that interaction, having the music, having everything else after more than a year of being locked down. I think people are really looking forward to seeing that. Let's go ahead and wrap up. I just want to thank you again for joining me this week. I'm proud of Sunnyvale's continued response to the pandemic. Life continues to be difficult. New issues come up almost every day, but your actions have really made a difference. It's really been inspiring. Continue to wear your mask where you need to, get your vaccination, help others where you can. I see people, passing out seedlings, whatever fruit they picked from the tree, giving freely to their neighbors, to friends. I'm really proud of Sunnyvale pulling together through this pandemic. If you're out on a walk, wave, say hello to a stranger. People miss that social interaction. Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We're in this together. We'll get through this together. Thanks for listening. And of course, wear your mask, get your vaccination, and stay safe. And have a great long weekend. Have a good Memorial Day. Okay, take care. Goodbye.